The blue and white marble of Earth hung peacefully against the black backdrop of space. From the viewing window of the United Earth Diplomatic Center in Geneva, it seemed impossible that this day would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. Catherine. Martinez stood with perfect posture, her gray suit impeccably pressed, hands clasped behind her back as she gazed at the approaching alien vessel. At 53, she had spent 30 years in diplomatic service. The slight touches of silver in her dark hair were well earned from countless tense negotiations. None, however, would be as important as today's. "They're early," said Jason Wright, her deputy, checking his tablet. "The Vesperian shuttle has requested permission to dock." Catherine nodded. "Granted. Let's show them humans understand punctuality, too." The Galactic Concord had made contact with Earth just 5 years ago. Humanity had been shocked to discover they were far from alone in the universe. Even more surprising was how many advanced civilizations existed in an organized political structure. Earth, with its newly developed faster-than-light technology, was like a toddler walking into a room full of adults. "The delegation is ready in the Grand Hall," Jason said. "President Brown asked if you wanted him present for the initial meeting." Catherine shook her head. "No. The Vesperians would see it as a sign of weakness, that we need our highest authority, present from the start. We follow protocol. The president joins for the final agreement signing, not before." The Vesperian Empire was one of the dominant powers in the Galactic Concord, a federation of over 30 spacefaring civilizations. Earth had spent years negotiating for membership. Today was supposed to be the culmination of those efforts, the final terms of Earth's entry into galactic society. Catherine walked briskly through the polished hallways of the Diplomatic Center. Staff members nodded respectfully as she passed. Everyone knew what rode on today's meeting. The Grand Hall featured a circular table made of rich, dark wood surrounded by 20 chairs. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the Alps in the distance. Catherine took her position at the head of the Earth delegation, 5 men and women representing the United Earth government. "Remember," she said quietly to her team, "we are equals here, not supplicants." The doors slid open. The alien delegation entered with Ambassador Zortik leading the way. The Vesperians resembled tall, slender humans, with iridescent blue skin and large, completely black eyes. Zortik stood nearly 7 feet tall, his ceremonial robes flowing around him as he moved. Catherine stepped forward, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting that had been explained to the aliens previously. "Ambassador Zortik, welcome to Earth. We are honored by your presence." The Vesperian looked down at her hand with what could only be described as disdain, though his facial expressions were subtle by human standards. After a moment too long, he briefly touched her hand. "We have traveled far," he said, his translator, device converting his clicks and whistles into English. "Let us not waste time." The initial pleasantries were kept to a minimum before both delegations took their seats. Catherine noted the stiffness in the Vesperians' postures, different from previous meetings. "We have reviewed Earth's application to the Concord," Zortik began without preamble. "There are concerns that must be addressed." Catherine maintained her diplomatic smile. "We're prepared to address any concerns. Earth has met all the technological and social requirements for membership as outlined in Section 15 of the Concord Charter." Zortik made a sound that the translator didn't convert but seemed dismissive. "Technical requirements, perhaps. But the Concord is more than a list of technical achievements." He stood walking around the table as he spoke. "Earth is young. Your species still fights among itself. Your technology, while advancing rapidly, remains primitive by Concord standards." Catherine kept her expression neutral. "Every civilization has its history, Ambassador. We've unified our planet under the United Earth government. Our conflicts are resolved through dialogue now." "For barely 2 decades, Zortik countered. "A moment in cosmic time. And your faster-than-light drive? Crude, inefficient, built using principles most Concord children understand." A murmur ran through the Earth delegation. Catherine raised a subtle hand to quiet them. "We're eager to learn," she said evenly. "Membership would give us access to that knowledge, allowing us to contribute more effectively to the conquered. Zortik returned to his seat. The Vesperian Empire has reconsidered its position. Full membership would be premature. Catherine leaned forward slightly. Our understanding was that full membership had been agreed upon in principle. We've spent years preparing. Plans change, Zortik said coldly. The conquered High Council believes Earth would benefit from a period as a protectorate instead. The word hung in the air. Protectorate, not a member, a subordinate. A protectorate, Catherine repeated, her voice perfectly controlled. Would you clarify what that entails, Ambassador? Zortik activated a holographic display showing a document. Earth would gain conquered protection. Limited technology exchange would occur. After a century or two, once your species demonstrates sufficient maturity, full membership could be considered. And in exchange? Catherine asked, though she already knew the answer. Earth's resources would be made available to conquered needs. Your military would operate under conquered, specifically Vesperian, oversight. Your colonies would be administered jointly. Lisa Garza, Earth's resource minister, couldn't contain herself. That's not an offer of membership. It's colonization. Catherine didn't silence her this time. The statement needed to be said. Zortik's black eyes fixed on Lisa. A primitive perspective from a primitive species. This is generosity. Your world was unknown to the galaxy until recently. Your barbaric history, world wars, nuclear weapons, environmental devastation, hardly recommends you as equals. He stood again, looming over the table. Humans should be grateful for any position in the conquered. Your alternative is isolation, while the rest of the galaxy advances without you. The Aizo insult was clear. Not just to their delegate, but to their entire species. The room fell silent. Catherine studied Zortik for a long moment. Then, with deliberate movements, she closed her folder and stood up. This meeting is adjourned, she said simply. Confusion flickered across Zortik's alien features. We have not finished presenting our terms. Yes, Catherine said. You have. She nodded to her delegation. Without a word, they gathered their materials and stood. Ambassador Martinez, Zortik said, his tone surprised. Surely you understand the position of the conquered is final on this matter? Catherine looked at him, her gaze level and calm. As is Earth's. She turned and walked toward the door, her delegation following in perfect disciplined silence. The doors closed behind them, leaving the Vesperians staring after them. In the private meeting room adjacent to the Grand Hall, President Elijah Brown and Defense Secretary Victoria Grant were waiting. They had watched the entire exchange through a secure feed. That went poorly, President Brown said, his face grim. Catherine placed her tablet on the table. No, Mr. President. It went exactly as I suspected it might. They think we're weak, Defense Secretary Grant said, anger evident in her voice. Catherine nodded. Yes, they do. A small smile appeared on her face. Let's show them what humanity can really do. 6 months passed without a single word from Earth to the galactic conquered. Catherine Martinez had ordered all diplomatic channels closed. No messages went out, no calls were answered. Earth had gone completely silent. In the vast meeting chamber of the Vesperian High Command, Ambassador Zortik addressed his superiors. The humans continue their silence. It is clearly a sign of their weakness and fear. They know they cannot refuse our terms. Supreme Commander Varleth, the highest military authority in the Vesperian Empire, made a dismissive gesture with his long fingers. They are young and proud. Let them sulk. They will return when they realize their isolation is hurting them, more than us. But Earth was far from inactive in its silence. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility unknown to the Vesperians or any other alien race, Catherine Martinez walked alongside President Elijah Brown. They moved through a massive, underground hangar where thousands of workers assembled ship components. How many will be ready within our timeline? Catherine asked, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. Defense Secretary Victoria Grant consulted her tablet. At current production rates, we'll have 300 ships ready in another 6 months. The shipyards on Mars and Europa are working at full capacity too. President Brown nodded approvingly. The Vesperians have no idea about these facilities, correct? None, Catherine confirmed. In all our negotiations, we only showed them our public space program. These military shipyards were kept completely off the record. The three continued, walking until they reached a sealed door. After passing through multiple security checkpoints, they entered a laboratory where scientists in white coats worked on complex equipment. Dr. Coleman, how are the shields progressing? Asked Secretary Grant. Richard Coleman, a man in his 40s with tired eyes and rumpled clothes that suggested he hadn't left the lab in days, looked up from his work. The breakthrough came last week. We've successfully adapted the technology. We reverse-engineered from the Arcturian trading vessel. He pressed a button, activating a small demonstration. A model of a human ship was hit by a beam of energy that simulated Vesperian weapons. The shield around the model glowed but held firm. It can withstand direct hits from their primary weapons, explained Dr. Olivia Daniels, Coleman's research partner. The Vesperians believe our technology is decades behind theirs. This will prove them very wrong. Catherine smiled. Excellent work, doctors. Next, they traveled to the orbital shipyard above Earth. From the observation deck, they watched as workers in spacesuits assembled the massive frame of what would become the flagship of Earth's fleet. The UES Defender, announced Admiral Paul Winters as he joined the group. Twice the size of any ship we've ever built and equipped with every advancement we've developed in the past 5 years. Catherine studied the massive vessel taking shape. And the special modifications? Being installed now, the Admiral confirmed. When completed, she'll be able to deploy her entire complement of fighters in under 30 seconds. No other ship in the known galaxy can match that. President Brown placed his hands behind his back, watching the construction. The Vesperians think we're licking our wounds, but we're sharpening our teeth. Catherine spent the next several months traveling between Earth and its colonies, coordinating the massive military buildup. On Mars, she inspected the newly completed fighter squadrons. On Europa, she reviewed the submarine carriers that could hide beneath the moon's ice sheets. On Titan, she observed training exercises for the Space Marines who would form the backbone of Earth's boarding parties. Throughout it all, Earth maintained its silence toward the conquered. 1 year after the diplomatic incident, Catherine sat in her office in Geneva reviewing final reports. Jason Wright entered with a tablet in hand. Ambassador Martinez, we've just received word. The Vesperians are returning. Ambassador Zortik's ship will arrive in 3 days. Catherine set down her cup of tea. Right on schedule. They're predictable, at least. They've waited exactly 1 year to give us time to reconsider their offer. Should we prepare the Grand Hall again? Jason asked. Catherine shook her head. No. This time we meet them at the orbital diplomatic station. They'll expect us to receive them here on Earth, again to show our submission. Let's change the playing field. And the fleet? Jason asked quietly, though they were alone in the secure office. Admiral Winters has his orders. Operation Silent Answer is ready. 3 days later, Catherine stood aboard the Earth Orbital Diplomatic station, watching as the Vesperian ship approached. It was massive and intimidating, clearly a warship rather than a diplomatic vessel. The message was clear. Accept our terms or face our might. They're hailing us, reported the communications officer. Put them through, Catherine said, straightening her dark blue diplomatic uniform. Ambassador Zortik's face appeared on the large view screen. His expression was unreadable to human eyes, but his tone carried unmistakable condescension. Ambassador Martinez, I trust Earth has had sufficient time to consider the Concorde's generous offer. Catherine smiled politely. Ambassador Zortik, Earth welcomes you back. We are prepared to continue our discussion. The Vesperian ship docked with the station. Catherine and her small delegation waited in the main conference room. This time there was no grand table, no elaborate setting, just a simple meeting room with a large viewport showing Earth below and the blackness of space beyond. The Vesperians entered, Zortik leading 6 others. Catherine noted they wore ceremonial armor beneath their robes, another attempt at intimidation. "I see you've chosen a different venue," Zortik commented, looking around the modest room. "Perhaps this reflects Earth's diminished expectations." Catherine gestured to the seats. "Shall we begin?" Once seated, Zortik placed a device on the table that projected the same protectorate agreement from a year ago. "The terms remain as presented. The Conquered is willing to be lenient regarding Earth's reaction during our last meeting. We understand that truth can be difficult to accept for younger species." Catherine folded her hands on the table. "Before we continue, Ambassador, I wonder if you've noticed any changes in Earth's situation over the past year." Zortik made a sound that his translator rendered as a scoff. "We have monitored your planet. You've made some minor technological advances, continued your small colonial expansions. Nothing that changes the fundamental reality of your position." "I see," Catherine said. She touched a small device on her wrist. "Admiral Winters, you may proceed." Zortik tilted his head. "What is this?" Catherine gestured toward the viewport. "Perhaps you should look outside, Ambassador." The Vesperians turned toward the large window. At first, there was nothing unusual. Just Earth, the station, and their own warship. Then, from behind Earth's moon, ships began to appear. Not one or two, but dozens, then hundreds. They moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. At the head of the formation was the UES Defender, its massive form dwarfing even the Vesperian warship. Fighter squadrons moved in coordinated patterns around the larger vessels, demonstrating precision and discipline. Zortik rose from his seat, moving closer to the viewport. For once, his surprise was evident even to human eyes. "What is this?" he demanded. The communication system activated, and Admiral Winters' image appeared. "Ambassador Martinez, the United Earth Fleet awaits your orders." Catherine remained seated, her expression calm. "Now, Ambassador Zortik, I believe it's time we discussed the real terms of Earth's membership in the Galactic Conquered." For the first time, fear flickered across the Vesperians' alien features. The silence in the conference room was broken only by the soft hum of the station's life support systems. Ambassador Zortik stood frozen at the viewport, his tall blue form silhouetted against the stunning display of Earth's previously hidden military might. The 500 warships moved in perfect formation, their hulls catching the sunlight as they positioned themselves in a half-circle around the station and the lone Vesperian vessel. Catherine Martinez remained seated, her posture relaxed yet commanding. She allowed the moment to stretch, knowing the psychological impact it would have on the Vesperians. This was diplomacy too, the silent communication of power. "Impossible," Zortik finally said, turning from the viewport. "These ships, they cannot be Earth vessels." "Why not, Ambassador?" Catherine asked calmly. "Your technology is primitive. You could not have built this fleet in secret." Catherine smiled slightly. "Yet there they are." On the main view screen, Admiral Winters waited patiently. His weathered face betrayed no emotion, but those who knew him well might have detected a hint of satisfaction in his eyes. "Your orders, Ambassador Martinez?" he repeated. Catherine raised a hand. "Maintain position, Admiral. Continue standard patrol patterns." "Yes, Ambassador." Winters out. The screen went dark. Catherine gestured to the empty chairs. "Shall we continue our discussion?" "Ambassador, I believe we were about to review the terms of Earth's membership in the Conquered." The Vesperian delegation exchanged glances. One of them, a military advisor judging by his insignia, leaned close to Zortik and whispered something. The ambassador's large black eyes narrowed, but he returned to his seat. "An impressive display," Zortik said, his voice regaining some of its previous confidence. "But appearances can be deceiving. Perhaps your ships look impressive from a distance, but what do they truly contain? What weapons, what defenses? The Vesperian Empire has been a military power for 10,000 years. Catherine nodded to Jason Wright, who activated a holographic display in the center of the table. "This is a standard scan of your vessel. Taken when you docked, Catherine explained as the image of the Vesperian warship rotated slowly above the table. Your primary weapon systems, shield generators, and engine configuration are all clearly visible to our sensors. She tapped a control, and the image changed to show detailed schematics of the Vesperian ship's internal systems. Your ship uses a standard Concord defensive grid with Vesperian modifications to the port and starboard generators. Your weapons are impressive. Class 4 plasma cannons, if I'm not mistaken. Highly effective against most shield configurations used in the Concord. Zortik's posture stiffened. This level of scan is a violation of diplomatic protocol. Perhaps, Catherine agreed. But as you so clearly reminded us last year, Earth is not yet a member of the Concord. We are not bound by its protocols. She changed the display again. This time it showed the UES Defender, our flagship. Note the shield configuration, a new design developed by our scientists. Our simulations suggest it can withstand sustained fire from Class 4 plasma weapons. Another tap, and the image zoomed in on one section of the massive ship. This is our primary weapon system. We call it the Spear of Earth. It's a focused energy weapon unlike anything in the Concord's arsenal. Zortik studied the image, his expression unreadable. You're bluffing. This technology would take decades to develop, even with guidance. Catherine switched off the display. We had guidance, Ambassador. Not all species in the Concord agree with Vesperian dominance. The statement hung in the air, its implication clear. Earth had allies among the conquered races. In the tense silence that followed, a communication alert sounded. Jason checked his tablet and whispered to Catherine. She nodded slightly before addressing the Vesperians again. It seems we have an interesting development. Admiral Winters reports that our fleet near Proxima Centauri has discovered something of note. Perhaps you'd care to see? Without waiting for a response, she activated the view screen again. This time it showed Lieutenant Commander Gregory Lawrence standing in what appeared to be an alien control room. Behind him, human soldiers secured several Vesperian officers. Report, Commander, Catherine ordered. Ambassador Martinez, we've secured the Vesperian installation in the Proxima Centauri system, Lawrence said crisply. As suspected, it was a forward military base being constructed in secret, well within Earth's claimed territory. He held up a data device. We've recovered their operational plans. The base was intended as a staging ground for a potential military action against Earth should negotiations fail. Catherine turned to Zortik, whose blue skin had taken on a paler shade. A military installation in our territory while we were supposedly engaged in peaceful negotiations. The Concord would find this very interesting, wouldn't they? Zortik's military advisor stood abruptly. This is an act of war. The Vesperian Empire will what? Catherine interrupted, her voice still calm but with an edge of steel. Launch an attack against an enemy whose capabilities you clearly underestimated? Against a fleet that outnumbers your nearest battle group 3-1? She stood slowly. Or perhaps you'll complain to the Concord about our aggression, while we present evidence of your secret military installation in our territory. The advisor sat down slowly. Catherine walked to the viewport looking out at the fleet. Earth does not want war, Ambassador. We never did. We wanted fair and equal membership in the Concord, as is our right under Concord law. She turned back, to face the Vesperians. But make no mistake, if forced to fight, we will. The days of Earth being seen as weak or primitive are over. Zortik's fingers tapped a pattern on the table. A nervous gesture. What do you propose? Simple. Earth joins the Concord as a full member, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. No protectorate status, no special conditions. And if we refuse? Zortik asked. Catherine didn't answer immediately. Instead, she touched her communication device. Admiral Winters, please direct the Defender to perform a weapons test. Target the abandoned lunar mining facility on coordinate Block 7. On the viewport, they watched as the massive Earth flagship moved slightly out of formation. There was a brief flash from one of its forward sections, almost too quick to see. A moment later, the surface of the moon lit up as a precisely focused energy beam struck the designated target. When the light faded, A perfect circular crater had replaced the abandoned facility. Clean energy conversion, Catherine explained conversationally. No radiation, no collateral damage, just pure energy transfer from point A to point B. She returned to her seat. Now, shall we discuss Earth's membership in the Concord again? As equals this time. Zortik looked from Catherine to the viewport and back again. For the first time, he seemed to truly see her, not as a representative of a primitive species, but as a dangerous and capable equal. Perhaps, he said slowly, there are aspects of the previous proposal that could be reconsidered. Catherine smiled. I thought you might say that. Shall we begin? Outside the viewport, Earth's fleet maintained its silent vigil, a physical manifestation of humanity's unspoken message. Never again would they be underestimated. The negotiations continued for 3 days aboard the Earth Orbital Diplomatic Station. Catherine Martinez never raised her voice, never threatened, and never gloated. She simply treated the Vesperians as equals, no more and no less. The change in dynamic was clear to everyone present. On the morning of the 4th day, Catherine entered the conference room to find Ambassador Zortik already waiting. The other Vesperians were absent. Ambassador Martinez, he greeted her, rising from his seat. I thought perhaps we might speak privately before today's session. Catherine nodded to her security detail, who left the room but remained visible through the clear door panel. She took a seat across from Zortik. What would you like to discuss, Ambassador? The Vesperian seemed different today. The arrogance that had defined his demeanor for so long was diminished. You have impressed many in the Concord, not just with your fleet but with your restraint. Catherine raised an eyebrow. Restraint? You could have fired upon our ship when we arrived. You could have used your position of strength to demand far more than simple equal membership. Many species would have. Catherine leaned back slightly, in her chair. That was never our intention. We wanted recognition, not domination. Zortik's large black eyes studied her. My superiors have authorized me to accept your terms for membership. The Concord Council will convene in one standard week to formalize Earth's entry as a full member. I'm glad to hear it, Catherine said. However, Zortik continued, there are other matters that concern me. You mentioned that Earth had assistance in developing your technology. From whom? Catherine smiled slightly. I think you already know the answer to that. The Arcturians, Zortik said. It wasn't a question. Among others. It seems the Vesperian Empire has made many, let's call them, uncomfortable allies over the centuries. Before Zortik could respond, Catherine's communication device chimed. She glanced at it, her expression changing subtly. It seems we have an unexpected visitor, she said. The Arcturian High Envoy has just arrived at the station. Zortik stood, abruptly. This is a bilateral negotiation. The Arcturians have no place here. Actually, Catherine replied calmly, I invited them when we began these talks. They should have a voice in matters that affect the balance of power in the Concord. Don't you agree? The door opened, and in floated the Arcturian High Envoy. Arcturians resembled luminous jellyfish, their translucent bodies glowing with gentle blue-green light. They moved through air as if swimming, their tendrils rippling gracefully. A small device hovered near what appeared to be their central mass, translating the patterns of light that flashed across their body. High Envoy, Catherine said, bowing slightly. Thank you for joining us. The Arcturian pulsed with light and the translator spoke. Ambassador Martinez, Earth honors us with this invitation. The lights changed pattern. Ambassador Zortik, the Vesperian Empire is present. The dismissive tone was unmistakable. Zortik's posture stiffened. Catherine gestured to the seats. Please let us continue our discussion with our new guest. As they settled, Jason Wright entered and whispered something urgently to Catherine. She nodded and turned to the others. Seems events are moving quickly. The Concord Council has called an emergency session in response to our revelations about the Vesperian military installation in Proxima Centauri. The Arcturian pulsed rapidly, lights flashing in what might have been surprise or excitement. This is unexpected. The Council rarely convenes without weeks of preparation. Several member species demanded immediate action, Jason explained, particularly after receiving the evidence we shared. Catherine looked at Zortik. It seems your Empire's actions have created quite a stir. Zortik's fingers tapped nervously on the table. This changes nothing. The Vesperian Empire has led the Concord for 3 millennia. One incident will not change that. Perhaps not, Catherine agreed. But it does raise questions about trust, doesn't it? The view screen activated, showing the Concord Council chamber, a massive amphitheater where representatives from all member species gathered. The emergency session was already underway, with Atraxian representatives speaking heatedly. Demand a full investigation into all Vesperian military installations near member territories, the insectoid alien was saying. If they built one, secret base, how many others exist? Catherine watched Zortik as the debate continued. His composure was cracking visibly as more species joined the calls for investigation. Meanwhile, across the solar system, Admiral Winters was conducting a synchronized demonstration of Earth's fleet capabilities. At Jupiter's moon Ganymede, Captain Melissa Hill led a squadron of 20 ships through a complex maneuver, forming and reforming patterns with precision that impressed even the Arcturian military observers. Remarkable coordination, commented the Arcturian observer aboard her ship. Your pilots train well. Thank you, Captain Hill replied. But it's more than training. Our new neural interface systems allow for near-instantaneous communication between ships. In the asteroid belt, Commander Peter Jones supervised as Earth ships demonstrated their previously unknown mining capabilities, extracting and processing rare minerals at speeds that surpassed even Vesperian industrial ships. And in high orbit around Mars, Chief Engineer Lisa Howard unveiled Earth's new faster-than-light drive to a group of Concord technical observers. Our jump drive operates on a completely different principle than standard Concord FTL technology, she explained as they watched a small Earth vessel disappear in a flash of light, only to reappear instantly at a predetermined point near Saturn. It's not just faster, it's more precise and uses 30% less energy. All of these demonstrations were being broadcast to the Concord Council session, timed perfectly to coincide with Earth's diplomatic maneuvers. Back on the station, Catherine watched as the view screen showed these events. She said nothing, but her message was clear. Earth was not just militarily strong but technologically innovative in ways the Vesperians had never imagined. You planned all of this, Zortik said quietly. The timing, the demonstrations, the council session. Diplomacy is rarely just about what happens in the negotiation room, Catherine replied. Sometimes it's about setting the stage properly. The Arcturian High Envoy pulsed with what seemed like amusement. The humans understand the greater game, Ambassador Zortik, perhaps better than the Vesperians expected. On the view screen, the Concord Council moved to a vote. The question, whether to conduct a full investigation of Vesperian military activities throughout Concord space. The vote passed overwhelmingly. Zortik's communication device chimed. He checked it, his expression darkening. The Supreme Commander wishes to speak with me urgently. Of course, Catherine said graciously. We can continue when you return. After Zortik left, the Arcturian envoy floated closer to Catherine. You have done what many thought impossible, Ambassador Martinez. You have changed the balance of power. In the Concord without firing a single shot. Catherine looked out the viewport at the Earth fleet still holding position. That was always the plan. Earth doesn't seek war. But we will never again allow ourselves to be treated as inferiors. And what happens now? The Arcturian asked. Catherine smiled slightly. Now we prepare for Earth to take its rightful place in the galaxy, as equals. Outside, the stars shone steadily against the blackness of space, witnessing humanity's quiet but unmistakable rise to power. 2 weeks later, the grand chamber of the Galactic Concord headquarters buzzed with activity. Representatives from all 30 member species gathered for what many were calling a historic session. The massive dome-shaped room had been built centuries ago on a neutral planetoid at the junction of several major trade routes. Today, it would witness something new, Earth joining as a full member. Catherine Martinez stood with her delegation, at the entrance waiting for the formal invitation to enter. Her dark blue diplomatic uniform had been updated with the new Earth emblem, a stylized globe with stars radiating outward, symbolizing humanity's expansion into the cosmos. "Nervous?" Jason Wright asked quietly. Catherine smiled slightly. "After facing down a Vesperian warship? Hardly." The massive doors swung open, and the Earth delegation was announced. As they walked down the central aisle toward the speaking platform, Catherine noted the varied reactions from the assembled aliens. Some showed obvious respect, others curiosity, and a few, particularly the Vesperian representatives, barely concealed resentment. The conquered High Chancellor, a tall, willowy being from the Talarian species, raised 4 of his 6 arms in the traditional greeting. "Ambassador Catherine Martinez of Earth, you come before the conquered to finalize your world's membership. Are you prepared to accept the responsibilities and privileges that membership entails?" Catherine stepped forward. "Earth is prepared, High Chancellor. We come as equals, ready to contribute to the greater community of worlds." The formalities continued, with various representatives asking questions about Earth's commitments to conquered laws and regulations. Catherine answered each with confidence and precision. She had spent years preparing for this moment. When the questioning ended, the High Chancellor called for the membership vote. One by one, representatives cast their votes. The Arcturians voted yes immediately, followed by many of the middle powers within the Concord. When it came to the Vesperians, Ambassador Zortic hesitated visibly before also voting yes. By the unanimous decision of the Concord Council, Earth is now recognized as a full member, announced the High Chancellor. "Let the record show that on this day, the 31st member has joined our Fellowship of Worlds." Applause and various alien equivalents of approval filled the chamber. Catherine maintained her diplomatic composure, but allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. The formal ceremony concluded and the chamber transitioned to a reception area where representatives mingled. Catherine found herself approached by numerous alien diplomats, many eager to establish closer ties with Earth now that its power had been demonstrated. She was speaking with a Talarian trade minister when an urgent message came through on her secure communication device. She excused herself and moved to a quiet corner to receive it. "Ambassador Martinez," said the grim face of Captain Samuel Jones of the UES Vigilant. "We have a situation near Europa. A Vesperian battle group just dropped out of FTL near our colony, 5 warships heavily armed." Catherine's expression remained calm, but her mind raced. "Have they made any aggressive moves?" "Not yet. They're holding position just outside the colony's defense perimeter, but their weapons are powered and shields are up." "I see," Catherine said. "Maintain position but do not engage unless they fire first. I'll handle this from here." She looked across the reception hall to where Zortig stood with several other Vesperians. Their body language suggested tension. They knew what was happening. Catherine walked directly to the Vesperian group. Conversations quieted as others noticed her purposeful approach. "Ambassador Zortic," she said clearly, her voice carrying in the sudden silence. "I wonder if you might explain why a Vesperian battle group has just appeared near our Europa colony." The room fell completely silent. Zortic's expression showed momentary surprise before he regained his composure. "I know nothing of this," he claimed. "Perhaps there is a miscommunication." Catherine turned to a nearby attendant. "Please activate the main display." The large view screen on the chamber's wall came to life, showing a real-time feed from Europa. The 5 Vesperian warships were clearly visible, their distinctive arrow-shaped hulls unmistakable. "No miscommunication," Catherine said. 5 Vesperian warships with weapons hot near an Earth colony, on the very day Earth joins the Concord. The High Chancellor moved forward. Ambassador Zortic explained this immediately. Before Zortic could answer, the feed changed. Another ship appeared from behind Europa itself, the UES Vigilant. It moved to position itself between the colony and the Vesperian vessels. "What your feed doesn't show," Catherine said, "is that we detected this battle group 3 days ago. We've been tracking them since they left Vesperian space." More ships appeared on the screen, Earth vessels emerging from hiding places amid Europa's ice ridges and from behind its neighboring moons. Within moments, the Vesperian battle group was surrounded by 15 Earth ships. "A test," Catherine continued calmly. "Or perhaps a last attempt at intimidation. Either way, it failed." On the screen, Captain Jones opened a communication channel to the Vesperian commander. His voice came through clearly on the Concord Chamber's speakers. "Vesperian vessels, you have entered Earth sovereign territory without authorization. You will power down weapons and shields immediately, or we will consider this an act of war against a conquered member world." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. The Arcturian representative floated forward, pulsing with bright lights. "The Arcturian Union will stand with Earth if the Vesperians persist in this aggression," the translator announced. 3 other species quickly made similar declarations. Zortik's blue skin had paled significantly. On the screen, the Vesperian ships began powering down their weapons. One by one, their shields deactivated. The tense standoff ended without a single shot fired. Catherine turned to Zortik. "It seems your military received outdated orders. Perhaps communication within the Vesperian Empire needs improvement." It was a diplomatic way of allowing him to save face while everyone present understood the truth. The Vesperians had made one final attempt to intimidate Earth and had failed completely. The High Chancellor stepped forward. "This matter will be investigated thoroughly. If this was an authorized military action, there will be severe consequences under conquered law." Hours later, after the diplomatic furor had settled, Catherine stood on the observation deck of the UES Defender. Admiral Winters joined her, both of them gazing out at the stars. "The Vesperian Supreme Commander has been removed from his position," Winters informed her. "Apparently, he ordered the Europa operation without the approval of their civilian government." Catherine nodded. "A convenient scapegoat." "Do you think they'll try again?" Winters asked. "No," Catherine said with certainty. "Today taught them the final lesson. We're not just strong, we're smart. We anticipated their move and countered it perfectly." She turned from the viewport to face the Admiral. "Earth's position is secure now. The balance of power in the conquered has shifted, and everyone knows it." Winters allowed himself a rare smile. "All without firing a single shot. Your strategy worked perfectly, Ambassador." "It wasn't just my strategy," Catherine said. "It was humanity's response. When faced with an insult, we didn't react with immediate anger. We planned. We built. We waited for the perfect moment." She looked back at the stars, countless points of light representing worlds that humans might one day visit. "The galaxy is larger than the Vesperians led us to believe," she said. "There are wonders out there we've only begun to imagine. Now we can explore them not as supplicants or protectorates, but as equals." The massive ship cruised silently through space, Earth visible in the distance like a blue jewel against the blackness. Humanity had answered an alien insult not with rage but with silence and a fleet. And in doing so, they had changed their destiny forever.